and cases in our area. While this is good news that the rate of new cases and severity is not what it was, we cannot and must not become complacent. We must continue to practice preventative measures and exercise personal responsibility. That means we should continue to social distance when we can, wash our hands frequently, wear masks in public places, and avoid large gatherings. I know that many of us are getting COVID fatigue and are growing tired of these measures and discussing around this virus. But these steps remain the greatest tools in our arsenal. The more we practice them as a community, the sooner this virus will leave us. To that end, just a few moments ago, my team, in collaboration with our local hospital leaders, area hospital leaders, released a public service announcement on social media, urging members of our community to do their part and continue to wear a mask. You can find the video on the city's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, as we're asking you to share this message with your friends and followers. I'm grateful to UF Health, Ascension St. Vincent's, Baptist Health, Memorial Hospital, Brooks Rehab, Mayo Clinic, and the Naval Hospital at NAS Jax for their participation. Wearing a mask is a simple, easy, and effective way to protect our friends, neighbors, and loved ones from the community spread of this virus. Before we close, I want to talk a little bit about the tragic violence we saw this past weekend in our community and some of the progress we're seeing in the Cure Violence program. As we continue to monitor the COVID-19 pandemic, we see the unintended impact on crime. I was deeply troubled to learn of these tragic events and am anytime we hear of a murder or a shooting. No one wants to see this kind of violence in our community, particularly when children are involved or when they take place in a location like a city park. My deepest condolences go out to the victims and their families. I continue to work with Sheriff Williams, State Attorney Melissa Nelson, local organizations, community groups, and nonprofits to not only enforce the law, but also address the causes of violent crime. The budget currently pending before the Jacksonville City Council, like the past 5 years, reaffirms my commitment to investing in enforcement, prevention, and intervention. We must continue to invest in our children and our neighborhoods. This budget also includes prevention and intervention programs like Cure Violence and youth programs at Kids Hope Alliance. This will give us the ability to add a third Cure Violence location with help from state funding and expanding mentoring and trauma response for our children in the year ahead. The Cure Violence program is currently working in 2 neighborhoods with traditionally high violent crime rates, and they're making a difference. As of today, the Northside Bridges location is reporting 1 murder related to urban violence, which includes gang activity in the last 100 days. And earlier this year, the Noah's Ark site saw an 85-day stretch without a murder. I'm grateful for the violence interrupters currently fighting 2 epidemics, violence and COVID-19, and commit to doing what I can to support them in their important efforts, including an additional $1.75 million in my proposed budget before City Council. With that, thank you for joining me, getting this information to our citizens. Director Woodard is on the call with me this morning to help answer any questions with me. We'll start with Ann with First Coast News.
Good morning, Mayor.
Morning.
I've been asking your office since June for any documents or memos or text messages related to the removal list for Confederate monuments and markers, and they've told me that they don't have anything. And I don't understand. I'm curious if you can explain to me how your office came up with such a consequential list and a possibly costly list of removal items without creating a paper trail.
Look, if there's a paper trail on a public record and you've requested it, you should have it or you'll get it. What I can tell you is that I made the decision, I believe it was in June, as it relates to Hemming Park, formerly Hemming Park, I guess, until I sign the legislation here within the next week. And that the removal of the additional statues, monuments, et cetera, will run through a process, will not be unilaterally made in this office, a process that will determine through the arts community and the historic community when they're moved, and they will be moved, where they're moved, and how they will be contextualized based on history. I will follow up on your public records request. When public records requests are made, if they exist, you get them. That's what I expect from my office, and that's what we've done as long as I've been here. Jim from WJXT.
Mayor, just a couple of quick questions. First off, I understand you met with community leaders yesterday from the north side and activists as well. Can you tell us about that meeting? Did anything come out of that? And then again, I mean, I'm just surprised every day that we're now hearing the number of deaths here in Duval County. 12 deaths. That's, I know each one is a family, but are you concerned that that death rate is going to continue to rise like it is?
First part of your question, yesterday I did meet with a group of community leaders representing the African-American community, representing different organizations and activist groups to talk about infrastructure, to talk about racism, to talk about justice and equality. It's notable to say that over the last 5 years, I've also met with other groups in neighborhoods all over this city, including groups, individuals, pastors, leaders that particularly care about African-American neighborhoods. So this was a productive meeting that we will continue to have to figure out how we can collaborate and work together in these incredibly trying times. And look, the coronavirus has been spreading through our community, through our state, through many other states. It will spread as long as we don't have a vaccine, or as long as it's with us. Although we have heard situations of other countries where the spread has dropped significantly. Some that have taken different approaches. I think it's important to note that if we're being objective. So one death is tragic, and it is an individual. It's a life. It affects family members. The reality is the virus is with us. And we're going to have to work to navigate it. We're going to have to operate in a responsible manner. And remember that if you are at risk, if you have compromised immune system, if you have someone in your house does, you ought to take additional precautions. The idea that we would shut the entire city down as long as COVID-19 is with us is just not an acceptable response. And it's incredibly dangerous and risky on many fronts. So I encourage the wearing of masks. I encourage folks that, again, if you have someone at risk in your home or you are at risk, your behavior ought to be modified and act accordingly. Ryan with Action News.
Hi, Mayor. So you mentioned that there could be a third cure violence location. Is there an indication where that would be in the city at this point in time, in addition to the North Side Bridges and Noah's Ark area? And then additionally to that, are there concerns that perhaps crime would shift? And then as a follow-up question to the James Weldon Johnson Park legislation, you mentioned that it is your intent, I believe, to sign that. Could you perhaps weigh in on the process in which we went from the possibility of a compromise to where we are today?
I'm sorry, what was the first part of the question?
The James Weldon Park question, or the cure violence?
The first part of the. Oh yeah, third location. I don't have those. We'll get that to you. I don't have that information with me at this point in time. Certainly, there is. Certainly, history tells us, law enforcement experts have told me and shared with me that when you focus on an area, whether it be through policing or whether it be through, in this case, even cure violence, that there's the possibility that behavior will move. But we've got to start somewhere. That's why we've piloted these programs. The upside of cure violence, if you will, is this is not a policing effort. These are individuals that have that are not a part of our police department. They're not a part of the city, even though we fund it. They're individuals that are out in the community that are working to simply disrupt a retaliation or disrupt an act of violence. As it relates to the process, that was a city council process. I've long said for 5 years that when they engage in legislation, that's their process that I'll evaluate. If and when a bill ends up on my desk, I'll evaluate it, and I'll leave the process to them. I'm proud of their accomplishment last night and look forward to signing that bill. Stephen with WOKV.
Mayor, you mentioned that you plan on signing that Hemming Park renaming legislation within the next week. So does the city have an estimated timeline for when signage will be replaced at what is now soon to be known as Hemming Park? And also, do you have a timeline for signage replacement at Confederate Park as well?
Do not have, look, the legislation that was passed last night is new, both pieces of legislation. So at this point, I don't have a timeline, but it'll be a part of our priority list of implementing the legislation once it's signed. Ellen with the Jacksonville Business Journal.
Good afternoon, Mayor. I had two quick questions for you. Some city council members last night expressed concerns about the city creating a deficit because of the aid it's providing for businesses and people impacted by COVID-19. Is that a concern that you share? And additionally, is there more aid on the horizon for small businesses locally, or are we nearing the end of that rope?
Well, we are in uncertain times, unprecedented times. If you go back to when COVID-19 in March here in Jacksonville specifically, with so much uncertainty, safer at home orders, small businesses struggling, families struggling, people getting laid off. That's why the budgets that I've presented over the years have increased reserves, have paid down debt, have been fiscally and financially responsible. People never think that a once-in-a-lifetime event is going to happen. Guess what? It happened, and our budget, our financial statements were prepared because of the behaviors we've had over the years. So we have adequate reserves to do what we're doing right now. We have good credit ratings, the ability to borrow responsibly if we need to. I would add we've paid down debt every year, including this year, since I've been in office. So I'm not concerned about deficits, but the truth is the future of COVID-19 and what this may look like is unknown. So we're just going to have to monitor it and be responsible every day. I don't have immediate plans for additional aid, but in these uncertain times, I'd say that you can't say that it's off the table. I wouldn't say it's off the table. There are no further questions. Thank you. I want, again, the public service announcements out. Please check it out. Please share it. Please behave responsibly.
And as he mentioned, behaving responsibly, there's the empty chair. Mayor Lenny Curry, thank you. An ad campaign he's going to begin now, encouraging more widespread use of masks. And he even mentioned more money going to the Cure Violence Intervention Program here in Jacksonville. We'll have much more news at noon coming up for you right after this short break. Stay there.